there's a level of integration when the experience is written about. And of course, like, then there's also the next step of being able to think about, well, what do I want to do with this knowledge? And of course, writing can help with that too, because then it's like, okay, well, here's what maybe it's intentions or some kind of like goal or vision you have from this insight to kind of integrate it further and make sure that you're you're really tapped into it in in whatever you do going forward.
It's important to remember that it can be all kinds of things that can come up too, like unexpected beautiful something, unexpected, all kinds of different things. But when you were talking, it was also making me think of how a lot of, again, a parallel, both the spiritual journey, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, and the writing journey and process, is a lot around processing things that are sometimes difficult also. So again, not always. I think we want to be open to what we need and not assume that it's going to be that way either. But that can happen. And so that again makes me think that like the body, we store so much in our body just of all kinds of experiences and everything is also so important for being able to access that, I think. So I think it's also important because of that kind of tuning in.
Mm-hmm. I think it keeps
Have
us
you found that
too.
for grounded? Yes, that's important. That's like really important word actually. And I remember you mentioning the word grounded a lot, actually, when we've talked about writing in this kind of a way, so much as a practice like this. I think you use that word also in terms of sort of what might happen next. Like, let's say you have a writing time, and it's really like you really connect in. How can we then sort of continue to ground it and integrate it into the world? So I don't know if you have thoughts about that, how we can do that, take it forward, which we don't always do. Sometimes we make other spiritual practices too. Again, it feels very parallel. Sometimes it's like, here's our meditation time. Oh, now we're like completely out of it. Like, how can we use all our spiritual practices and particularly the writing practice and then sort of carry something forward from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about writing too. It captures and it records these things and you have them for the future because I feel like sometimes like I know I've had these like kind of peak spiritual experiences where I have this amazing flash of insight, an amazing like felt experience in the moment and then it's kind of done and then maybe I move out of that environment and then it's harder to get back into that space again once maybe that was a peak experience at a retreat or something and then I come home and I'm like, oh, back to the back to the routine. What was that thing that was so amazing? I feel like in times like those, like when the words are written down, and it could be like right after the experience, it could be a little time later, but like once the experience is kind of captured in words, again, there's like that resonance with words where I feel like I can connect back to the experience and I can just remember like what it was about it. And that language, like with words, like it's a way to remember, like, oh yeah, this is what it was. And it kind of integrates it. There's a level of integration when the experience is written about. And of course, like then there's also the next step of being able to think about, well, what do I want to do with this knowledge? And of course, writing can help with that too, because then it's like, okay, well, here's what maybe it's intentions or some kind of like goal or vision you have from this insight to kind of integrate it further and make sure that you're you're really tapped into it in whatever you do going forward.
What do you think about switching now to talking a little bit about how this can connect us to other people? Because I know we've also talked about how, when it's such an authentic expression of ourselves, that really does connect with others. Often just, on the page reading it, but let's say also maybe someone's in a workshop and then they're sharing it. And it's like you get into this other deeper space with the other people kind of by virtue of all of you doing that kind of a deeper process, I think, and showing up authentically like that. So what has your experience been with that sort of group, however big or small it is, experience?
Mm. Well, I think about people who are like introverted or shy or super sensitive, in particular, because I'm definitely one of those people, and especially for this group of people, it can be really hard to speak up in the moment and to like have the words just roll off the tip of your tongue and um, but yeah, like express yourself verbally. But the writing, like it gives a way to really tap into something to a little more space, right? There's more space with writing where you can have the time to like think about things, to reflect and not have to give uh, like an answer or to have an answer in the moment, but it gives a little more time. And I think that like
Mm-hmm.
this way of connecting, it may feel more authentic, especially for people who are introverted or shy or quiet or highly sensitive empaths. Like there's just
Mm-hmm.
it's gentle. It's like a way
Mm-hmm.
to really tap into what it is you do want to say. There's a little more space for maybe editing, for thinking about, okay, well, this isn't quite what I wanted to say, but this is what it is instead. And I think starting from that
Mm-hmm.
place of like really more a full expression than maybe is comfortable or possible otherwise. I think that's like
Mm-hmm.
part of this connection experience.
Yeah. And I wonder, it occurs to me some of our fears that, we're talking about this fearless place of authenticity, but sometimes our fears can crop up maybe of being misunderstood or um, people not necessarily understanding us completely. I mean, it starts to get to some of those paradoxes and things where it's like there's this way we can connect with people on such a deep level, and like really we're having such a shared experience of humanity, and the writing's tapping into that. Then it's also true, right, that we have our own experiences. It's like really that paradox in a way of oneness and our own diverse expression. And so yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't know that we're going to like solve this here. This is a more like a big question of paradox for discussion, but that's something sometimes I've struggled with where it's like as a writer, I half feel like how can I ever convey in my words what I'm trying to convey here and be understood? Almost like the words are a barrier and yet they are the connective thing at the same time, which feels very similar in a way to just the whole experience in general, like I said, of oneness and diversity, and we're each having our own experience, and can someone else completely understand that? um, but yeah, maybe it has to do somewhat with what we mean by being understood, though. Like I do think that that's possible, like that it's how perfectly do we need to be understood? Is it like a
Mhm,
perfection thing, or is it what is it we're trying to convey? Is it the
mhm.
exact wording, or is it more the metaphor?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I do think that there's something really profound about having the experience of connecting with yourself, writing about your personal story, your personal experience, and doing it, especially the parts of your experience where you've never felt understood in the past, where you always felt like, oh my gosh, I'm so different. Everyone else, like, no one else gets this part of me. There is something really profound about writing those stories, those experiences, and putting them out there into the world, and then having the people who do resonate, who do understand, find you and say, oh my gosh, I could have written those words. This is amazing. I've never felt so seen and heard and understood in my life. And you just wrote these things and I feel like not so alone anymore. And I feel like this is kind of
Mm-hmm.
these are probably like the roots of my work, because I think there's so many people who are lonely and feel misunderstood, feel like they're the
Mm-hmm.
only ones with this experience. But in a way, it is also a universal experience of being a feeling like we are all different in
Mm-hmm.
different ways. And I feel like the when we can really acknowledge, honor, own claim these parts of ourselves where we didn't feel like we fit in, we didn't feel like it was okay or safe to be um, our full self and to have these experiences that other people didn't seem to get. So we kind of hid them, and we put on masks and all those things, like to be able to go under the surface and get into like um, to writing, to putting words, like finding language for those experiences that we've had where we did not feel like we were understood, and we felt pretty terrible about it. To be able to um, connect with people who have had very similar experiences, especially when it's unexpected. Like, this is such a profound thing that I've experienced in my life, and I really want to share with other people because I think it is like it feels like it connects to soul purpose and like right back to the spiritual journey. There you go. Like of why we're here and what we're meant
Mm-hmm.
to do and who we are. I think our differences are one way of identifying like some of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons why we're here and what we're meant to be doing with our time and what we can offer, like our gifts and the things that are special and unique about us. And it doesn't have to be that, it's completely something new and different, but it could just be the different flavors that we have for our work or our writing, our stories that help us connect with others and let us be more of
Mm-hmm.
who we are in our lives as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Again, I feel like there's really those two sides of it. I think a lot of it is about that very specific, putting it out there, this very specifics of ourselves, those the exact words that we do connect to and are able to name, and it is so important. So that's like a big piece of it. And then sometimes the people do find us who that connects with. And then there's sort of the also that deeper place where maybe someone even who might not connect with the exact words, it's more like if you're both doing that process together, you could still maybe connect, not necessarily fully understand the other person's experience, but if you're both doing that, um, I want to say the word work here, Bella. I'm not sure that's quite the right word, but the process, I guess I'll just use the word process again. Um, if you're doing that process of that deeper connection to yours, each person's story, then there's that way in which there's that connection too. So it's kind of like there can be that very specific kind of connection, and then there's almost maybe the more process kind of connection, it seems like.
Mm.
And they're both real and they're both valid and they're both part of the whole thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's something about that process connection. I think it's around those universal, going back to those themes of universal feelings that we have. We may not have the same experience as someone, to the details, to the context, but we know what it's like, to
Mm-hmm.
have a broken heart. We know what it's like to be really excited about something. We know what it's like to like have these feelings come up. And I think there's also the other piece with the process connection is vulnerability. Like, it is so vulnerable. It can be so
Mm-hmm.
scary to go into these places of ourselves and shine a light on what's there. And I think being in the company of others who are also doing that is very connecting, because it is like, it can be really terrifying. And to have, to know that you're not alone in that process, to know that whatever parts of you that you thought were not okay or there was something wrong with you, to know that, these feelings, even if the specifics don't connect with everyone, but to know that these feelings that, oh my gosh, I'm afraid there's something wrong with me. I'm afraid that, that I'm different, or that it's not safe to be who I really am, that it's not okay, that people are going to judge me. All of these things, those start going into the universal space where it's really common, and the details may be different, but those feelings about the experience
Mm-hmm.
are very common.
Yeah. This is reminding me of the other, this is a direct quote from Neruda that feels relevant here. This was in his speech upon receiving the Nobel Prize, actually. It says Neruda noted that there arises an insight which the poet must learn through other people. There is no insurmountable solitude. all paths lead to the same goal, to convey to others what we are, which just sort of feels like maybe it sums up what we were talking about. But I think it's interesting that he seems to mark that connecting piece with others as essential. So I think that's kind of interesting, because I think maybe a lot of people think of writing as such a solitary thing, and again, it's kind of both. Like, I feel like I've had parts where it's so much me integrating the self, but then it's also where I'm connecting to the universal, and it's also absolutely been to take it more from like what I needed to process way, and the content wise, like, I mean, all of that is coming in. Like, it's like if I hadn't had any experiences interacting with people, the universe, people, it's like that's necessary, sort of as like almost grist for the mill in a way. So as we close out our conversation for today, I just want to remind anyone watching or listening that I will, in the description box in the show notes, put Malar's information so you can see what her offerings are. And Malar, just as we close out, did you have any just final thought for our audience?
So I guess I just want to say that you're not alone. There's other people like you, and I really encourage you to keep writing, to keep connecting with yourself, and keep expressing who you are, even the parts that weren't okay in the past, because that was the past, and here is now, and there's always potential and opportunity for you to have the type of connection that you so desire. And it may seem out of reach, but I believe that the more that you feel in connection with yourself, the more that you can um, bring more of who you are into your life, the easier it's going to be for you to experience these deeper types of connection. And especially if you're someone who's always felt different, especially if you're someone who's um, like introverted or highly sensitive, or someone who just doesn't fit the mainstream perspective, or the I don't know, the concept of what's normal, quote unquote, in the world. And as a person, like, even if you're outside the norm, it's okay to be who you are.
That was such a beautiful invitation to our audience to end on. And I just want to thank you so much, Malar, for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sonia.